Hello everybody, it's James here and it's Ask Dutch Anything. We're going to go through the quick version of the plugs and we're going to get straight into it because it's going to be a fairly short version, I think, this episode. But anyway, Pro Wrestling Tees...
it's a short version before we start talking. So you really can't... This is a say what you want to type deal, so you really can't put a time on it.
Yeah, we threaten short shows and we never follow through with them.
No, it'll be okay. It'll be good.
So the short version of the intro, if nothing else, prowrestlingtees.com. Go find us there. We've got some stuff there you can buy from us. Links are in the description. What else is in the description is a link to our Facebook page. Please follow us on Storytime with Dutch Mantell Facebook. And most importantly, we've got merchandise as well. I've got 2 books, one on Owen, Hart, one on The Rock. Fine books they are as well. Very highly rated. 2 more books that are very highly rated on Amazon are The World According to Dutch and Tales from a Dirt Road, both by Dutch Mantell. That's a hat, though, he's showing, not the books. If you want them unsigned, you can go to Amazon. The links are in the description below. If you want to have them signed by the man himself, you go to Dirty Dutch Mantell with 2 L's at gmail.com. There are the books as well. You saw the hat earlier. He's also flogging some caps. There's only a few left, so if you want them signed, you better get in there quickly before they are all gone. And also diplomas from the University of Dutch that he will sign and send to you as well. And most importantly, aside from the merchandise, is the email, questionsfordutch@gmail.com. If you want to get your questions sent into this show, that is the only way to do it. Questionsfordutch@gmail.com. And as I say, thank you so much for everyone who does do that. We get dozens and dozens and dozens every single week. It's very, very hard to pick the ones that we are going to end up in the script. And if someone writes in something that we've addressed before, someone from the email people will hopefully write you back and tell you and send you a link and everything, so you don't feel like you've been ignored either. Yes, Dutch?
I forgot what I was going to say now. But sometimes we say, well, you may enjoy it, you may not, but they will enjoy this one.
Oh, you've got something to say. You've got something to say from one of these questions, I know.
Oh, I do. So stay tuned, folks.
Okay, then. First one is Luke. Hey, Dutch, since Hulk Hogan claimed he had 24-inch pythons, there were other guys with huge arms like Jeep Swenson, Scott Steiner, and Billy Graham. Braun Strowman made an Instagram post saying he had 25-inch arms. Who do you think really had the biggest arms in wrestling?
Well, I never met Jeep Swenson, but his arms look bigger to me than Hulk Hogan's did. And the arms I liked the best, because I saw them every night I was in the dressing room with him, was Scott Steiner. You know, if you went in a dressing room with Scott Steiner, he was going to show you those arms. I mean, you can't get out of there without noticing them anyway. But see, the arms are one thing, but it's according to how tall the guy is. I think the shorter the guy, the arms look bigger. I think with Hulk, they didn't look as big as they were. Do you think they were 24 inches?
Are you saying that Hulk Hogan might exaggerate the truth slightly?
Well, he's kind of tall, so he's kind of lanky-like, I think. So that would make his arms look actually smaller than what he's claiming. But who knows what a 24-inch arm looks like anyway? Most people wouldn't know that. I mean, you measure your arms, they 16 inches, 18, whatever they are. But 24-inch python, brother. You know,
do you know you just saying with height? I'm sorry to interrupt you. I was going to say, do you know who had big arms but was very short back in the day? Ivan Putski.
Yes, because I was right, correct? Shorter they are. I mean, his arms look bigger than what they actually are, because you take a 24-inch arm on Putski, that'd be half his chest almost. So he would look just massive. Hulk being taller, they're going to look, from a distance, I'm saying, they're going to look, I don't think they look 24 inches. Or you can't look at them and say, oh, that's 23 3/4. You don't know. So he could call him anything. He could call him 25-inch arms, really. But who said he had 25-inch arms? Braun Strowman?
Braun Strowman claims that, yeah.
Do you think he has 25-inch arms?
It's, as you say, it's sort of tough to say, because you're looking at someone on a picture or on video. You don't get the full scale of the height of the guy. But maybe?
Oh, he's a big guy. So
do you know, my man Don Morocco has claimed that he, and I believe him, he had bigger arms than Hulk Hogan did.
He had big arms.
He was a big old dude, and still is a big old dude, as Don. Who had the best arms in the business then? Are you going to say Scott's? So let's say, build a wrestler and you could take anybody's arms from the business and have them as your own. Whose would you pick as far as size, vascularity, and all that kind of thing? The arms that you covet.
Muscularity. Muscularity.
The vascularity, the veins.
Oh,
baby.
Okay. No, I think Scott had those arms, but he had the triceps too. It's not just the biceps, it's the triceps. If you got big triceps, you got a big arm. So, but they can be so big they look freakish. So I would rather I think Scott standing there, he's great looking arms just in a picture. But I like when the deltoids come out and then the triceps come out and, they're standing there. And so I think the overall package, I think Scott had the whole package.
Do you know who had the best triceps? Sid. He had
Sid
some triceps on him.
And, Sid, a lot of guys have a great upper body, but their lower body, kind of their legs, like, you used to joke that they miss leg day. They don't go on leg day.
Like a Rick Rude.
Yeah. Bob Armstrong was like that. Bob Armstrong always had those big arms, and I don't know if they weren't the 24 inches, but they were probably 20. He had big arms, but his legs, he had no legs at all. He had no, the top leg and the bottom leg, the calves. He didn't have that. And he's a kind of a tall guy too, but he had great looking arms.
We will move on. HPZ says, Dutch, I watched a match you had with Butch Reed for Bill Watts in Mid-South in 1985. This match took place in the summer of that year. I thought you were very good as a heel in this match. This match made me want to watch more of your work. What do you think your best years in the business were? Thank you for your time. So we'll come back to that in a second, your best years. But working with Butch Reed, we've talked about Butch Reed when he had the fight with John Nord, but what was Butch Reed like to work with, especially when he was at the peak of his powers in Mid-South?
Great. Butch Reed was great. Butch Reed is a laid back guy anyway. So you're sitting there talking to him, and this is Butch. What do you want to do? I said, I don't know. What do you want to do? Because he would sell and sell and sell. And then when the time to come make his comeback, he knew how to get those people, and he'd start them dancing, and boom. Now all you got to do is sell his stuff. But very, very easy to talk to, very, very easy to work with. Never hurt you on anything. And hey, he had some pretty big size arms too. So, and Watts, I had to think about his name for a second. Cowboy Bill Watts. He loved Butch Reed. He loved him. So, because he liked, I don't know where Butch Reed was from, but he's from the center part of the country. I don't know where he was from, but Watts loved that guy. And of course, when I was there running around with a bullwhip, I wrestled every black guy in the company. So I didn't know who I was working. I just knew it was against four. It'd be Brick House Brown or
Snowman.
Who?
Snowman.
Snowman and then Butch Reed, and they had a nigga that George somebody. Can't remember his name, but I always knew that I'd be working with him. But Butch Reed, and I don't know what match he watched. Was it the outside match with Butch?
I don't know. If he's saying 85, I suspect it's something that's on the network because they've got a bit of Mid-South 85 on the network. I don't know which match exactly, though.
Well, I wrestled him in some place outside at a baseball stadium or a racetrack because we just, the background. They had a good house there, a great house. But it was so friggin' hot that day. It was like 104. I don't know how the people stood it. Because when I got in the ring, the mat was so hot, you couldn't lay on it. Probably the match was better because we stayed on our feet most of the times. You're not going to lay down on that hot mat. And they try to keep it covered before the the mat started, but still that mat gets hot with that sun bearing down on it. Humidity at 90%. I've heard about guys going in matches on a hot night and losing 5 pounds. I don't know. That's a lot of weight to lose, to tell you the truth. But I bet I lost 3 pounds just sweating. And it was outside. I remember it. I remember the finish. I remember everything. And I remember how the people bought it. And it was a good match. But I had good matches with Butch. And, sometimes when you have to wrestle certain guys and your styles don't quite match up, or the guy could have something wrong with him or hit you the wrong way, or there's some guys you just dread going into the ring with. And I hope I never hear it about myself, but I probably do. We'll hear if people keep talking enough. But Butch, I always look forward to wrestling him. I always look, because he was a great guy to get along with. Now, he passed away too, last year?
3 years ago, in fact. Yeah,
damn.
2021.
Brother, they're dropping like flies.
Mm.
All these guys I knew, and I got all these stories about, and now all of a sudden, they're gone. So I don't know. And Butch, I felt sorry for him. He was a great, I think I remember seeing him about 4 years ago. And I asked him a question, and I can't remember what I asked him now, but it was something, and he gave me an answer. I remember that, but I don't even know what it was. It must not have been that important. But Butch Reed, thank you very much for the fan who wrote in. What was his name?
Oh, it's on the previous page. Bear with me. H. Peasy or something like that.
Hey, Peasy. Thanks for your write in. And yeah, it was a good match. I liked that you liked it. Yeah, and I've done some more stuff. You know what? I found some stuff of me on, and it's old. Probably the oldest recorded material of me. It's when I wrestled in Trinidad for like the first time. And remember, I was talking about Trinidad, a little earlier today, not on air, but it was like going to Trinidad, and then they had never seen a live wrestling match. They'd seen it on TV, and you talk about a live crowd. People talk about electric crowds. That was one of them. So, but it wasn't, that's not a pearl of mine, the Trinidad stuff, but it shows you how, and that was in I'm trying to think of when it was, 1979 is when it was. Now, in Trinidad, it's right off the coast of South America. It is hotter than hell there. Hotter. That's what Tom Pritchard used to say. Hotter than hell. He would say that. But it would get like humidity like 98%. I mean, you could just walk outside and start sweating, period. So, but it was right on top of the equator. I wonder, why is it so hot here? Somebody said, let's go out and lay by the pool. Screw that. You might go get in the water and get out of the pool into the shade. You wouldn't get in the water and then get in the sun because you couldn't stand it that long. But anyway, I just brought that up for no apparent reason, but we're just rambling here anyway. Butch Reed, great talent, and condolences to his family. And I miss Butch still today.
He was born in Kansas City, Missouri. He studied at Warrensburg. Oh, no, I'm sorry. He studied at Central Missouri, and he died in Warrensburg, Missouri. So Missouri born and bred. Yep,
good guy.
Just before we get off Butch, I want to ask you this. So I know you didn't get to Mid-South when Junkyard Dog was still there, because he ruled Mid-South for quite a few years, and
sure did.
Now with Butch Reed, he was the replacement for Junkyard Dog. Bill Watts always wanted strong black baby face to draw the black fans and the white fans as well, because everyone loved JYD and then Butch as well. How good of a replacement was Butch for Junkyard Dog? Because no one can replace Junkyard Dog, but how did Butch do?
That's what I was going to say. Nobody can replace Junkyard. Junkyard was his own entity. He was his own creation. And Junkyard had a way, he had a great name. I met him as Sylvester Ritter. I first met him in Tennessee, and that's before he went to, I think he went to Memphis from there, and then he went to Mid-South, and Watts had been looking for, and the reason he had been looking for a person of color babyface. And you got to watch how you say that. I said, oh, well, why would he be looking for that? Because there are some counties in Mississippi, Louisiana, and Arkansas that are predominantly people of color. I was in one county, and they say the person of color population is 80%. So if you didn't have a black guy, a person of color guy that they can feel something for, well, then they might come, but they'll really come if he was there and he means something. And Junkyard Dog meant something in Mid-South. He meant a lot. So when he left to go to WWF, there's no replacing him. It's going to be in, and I could have told Watts then, I said, you're just not going to throw, because I didn't tell him this, but he knew this. You're not going to throw another person of color out there and expect them to take off along the same terms as Junkyard Dog did. And of course, when I was in Mid-South, he ran through a couple of people of color, I'll say. He ran through a couple of those talents, but they couldn't replace him. He had Butch Reed first, I think. Then he had Snowman. And then I think he finished up with, and I was only there a year. I think he finished up with Brickhouse Brown.
Was he called it was someone called like Jack or something like that? I can't remember who's.
Do what
like
now?
In the UWF days or something.
That was something Jack, yes.
I can't
but
remember.
He didn't do it either. And George Wells. George Wells is another one that didn't quite get it.
He was on the crack. That guy. That's what paid short shrift to his career. I think he was a crack addict for a while. He's cleaned up his act now, and I think he's doing very well.
Well, Watts kept looking, but he never found a replacement for Junkyard Dog. It's like if, say, when he lost, this is what Mid-South lost. They lost Ted DiBiase. They lost Duggan. They lost Jake the Snake.
Matt Bourne. Oh, no, they didn't lose Matt Bourne, did they?
Well, I don't think Matt Bourne meant that much, and then they lost Junkyard Dog. I mean, what are you going to replace those guys with? Because you just can't bring in it takes time for these people to get over, and you don't know if they're going to get over to the same extent, and they won't. But those guys were all big major stars in WWF, and that's how Vince made his company. He just stole the stars from all the other territories and took them out. Like he went to Florida, got Dusty, took him. Then he went and got Junkyard Dog in Mid-South. Then he got Lawler out of Memphis. And then he got Kerry Von Erich. Was it Kerry Von Erich?
He did at one point, yeah. Yeah, but Dallas was dead anyway by that point.
Yeah, but he took the name. He took the name synonymous with wrestling in Texas of Von Erich and took it to WWF.
And then called him Texas Tornado and sort of flitted back and forth. But by the way, it was Savannah Jack. That was bugging me, that one. We shall move on. We're going to watch a bit of a video. Sam has sent us a video of a reintroduction, as it were, to the Tennessee area of George and Nick Gulas, their aborted attempt to make a comeback in the late 80s. That I also believe that Kenny Bolin had his first job in wrestling, dealing with
he did
with the Gulases around this time. So I've seen this before. It's atrocious, this video, and it actually includes a bit of a promo with George and Nick. It includes a match. But first,
how long is this?
Oh, in total about 7 minutes. We have to watch the match. It's like a minute, and it is shocking. So 1 second.
This is the guy that I called the worst wrestler I have ever seen.
Here we go.
So see if you agree with me.
We've got to just watch this briefly.
My name is George Gulas, speaking on behalf of Universal Wrestling, the Major League of Pro Wrestling. We'll get back with more wrestling action, but first I have in the studio none other than my father, promoter Nick Gulas. And
he's got a Capital Wrestling jacket, so does that mean he was in Japan, or does that mean he was in Puerto Rico?
Right now,
I think that's a Japan jacket.
A couple minutes, and I know a lot of wrestling fans have asked to pass.
Well, anyway, he keeps saying words and keeps boring people to death.
Some 30 years ago, some 35 years ago. I had the greatest wrestlers in the world come to Nashville. Such great stars as Jimmy Landers way back in the early 30s and 40s and 50s. and the Ed Stranger Lewis, Luthez, Harley Race, Pat O'Connor. Some of the greatest wrestlers in the world came to Nashville. I brought them here. And I intend to bring some of the greatest wrestlers back to Nashville. Murfreesboro, Birmingham, Chattanooga, Knoxville, Memphis, Louisville, Evansville, every town that I can open up.
Okay, well, that's scintillating thing by Nick. We'll just move on. So this is the worst match that... are we saying this is the worst match you've ever seen, Dutch?
No, well, the other worst match I've ever seen, George Gulas is in it. So what is this?
So this happens afterwards. It's Peaches versus the Spoiler, and I believe the Spoiler is the skinny whippet in the blue vest with the little beer belly.
Where is this supposed to be?
One of the new black mat stars. This is the Gulas. This is the Gulas territory, outlaw territory of the late 80s.
There it is. That's the move. Oh, please pin him.
Where did he get this pair of tramps?
Well, Nick didn't. Look at there. What the hell that?
Wow.
That's porno.
I think he's penetrated him for the win.
I said, oh, he's waving him away. I'll get out of here. I won, but I'm going to beat him out of here. I'm embarrassed to be here. Oh, horrible.
Is that garden hose for the road?
No, I'm sure it is.
Jeez Louise. Let's just...
he said he had the greatest wrestlers in the world, Luthez, Harley Race, and the reason they didn't stay because they didn't make no money.
That is a crime. That's a crime. It must be.
And you saw it here. You'll see it nowhere else.
Apart from YouTube where we were watching it. Right, so then.
Horrible. Now, what are we going to see now?
No,
is that it?
No, yeah, that was it. I'm sorry to say. So Sam also says Tojo Yamamoto, Crazy Luke Graham, and Eddie Mansfield in Chattanooga. So this was actually 83. Might have been a bit earlier. I love how they described the guy as one of the new black mat stars. And it's like, geez, it's not the 1860s. You know what I mean? But anyway, were you guys in Memphis? Oh, here's what it is. Said Nick Gulas and George Gulas claimed that they were going to bring Lawler, Dundee, and Terry Taylor into the territory in 83. Were you guys in Memphis even aware of these shenanigans that Nick and George were promising these kinds of things on their outlaw TV?
No, unless somebody said it in the dressing room. And I think, if somebody brought it up, hey, did you see that Nick Gulas show Saturday? Because most of the guys, a lot of them lived in Memphis, so they wouldn't have seen Nashville TV because it was regional then. But nobody said anything about it. And basically, he was a little more than an independent that people knew a little bit more about than a regular independent. It was nothing. And I don't know where that studio was. I think it was in Nashville. They just curtained it off and had a match. I don't even think did you hear a crowd there?
There was a crowd. I mean, how many people do you need to make a crowd? 3? 4?
No, well, you would need like 20. Well, I don't think 20 were there.
No, I'm not sure 20 were there. Let's move on. Jason Speed's written in and says, "Good day, Dutch. I'm a professional wrestler since the age of 12 years old. I have worked
Wait
for
a minute.
WWE."
Wait a minute. I'm a professional wrestler since the age of 4. What's this guy's name?
No, since the age of 12.
Oh, since the age of 12.
Yeah.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Well, who was he wrestling then?
I don't know. He says, "I have worked for the WWF in the 90s. I'm still active. I've noticed in some indie shows, well-known wrestlers do not associate with the indie talent and keep to themselves. One instance was Rikishi. He was a real asshole to the indie guys. And on the other hand, Booker T walked around the locker room and introduced himself to everyone, even though everyone knew who he was. Your thoughts? Do wrestling superstars have an exemption from locker room edict?"
No, they don't have an exemption from it. It's just it's common courtesy, really. And Rikishi probably didn't go around because he didn't know anybody. And it's always up. I think in Rikishi's defense, it's not up to him to go and meet everybody. Everybody should come and meet Rikishi. Hello, I'm so pleased to meet you. And he'd be friendly. But see, for him to go around, and Booker T, he just wanted to go around, hey, how you doing? And every individual talent is different. Who knows what Rikishi had gone through that day or anything else. But it's just proper dressing room protocol that you go and meet everybody and say hello to them and nice to meet you. That's all you got to do. How much effort does that take? And if somebody didn't do it, you may have thought he was an asshole when he didn't intend for that to come off that way. It's just a day at the office for him. Because he doesn't know you, but all the other guys know him. So it's up to you to come up and say hello to him. That's the dressing room protocol that I think the guy got confused.
Michael says, I'm a huge fan of the show. You guys are awesome. Thank you. I was wondering from both of you who would make a great world champion if you started a promotion today. So if you could pick one person wrestling today to be your world champion for your new promotion, who would you pick?
Well, that's a tough question. But see, it's not the world champion so much. It's the other people that he's got around him. But I think the best setup that has this under control is right now is WWE. AEW, hey, they're saying they're trying to compete, but they're not competing. They're really not. Their ratings are nowhere the same. Their stories are nowhere the same. Their production is nowhere the same. And now all that can be fixed. The production can be fixed. You can get more lights and you can get more technicians and you can get better sound or whatever. But it's how you produce your show. And but look at WWE. Who's your champion right now?
Gunther is one and Cody Rhodes is the other.
And they surround those guys with all this other talent. Saying just picking a world champion to be ahead of some little indie show, that kills the champion. Because who's he going to wrestle? What story are they going to tell? It takes a while to build wrestling. Now, wrestling doesn't start out. You start a little company and all of a sudden you're going to sell out. No, you got to give them people something. It's like if you started a band and you played at some club, well, hell, the people got to know you there first. Plus, you got to be damn good. And that's how you get the people coming. And Tony Khan, I've said this 1,000 times, when he realizes that it's the stories, it's not so much the wrestling, because people, how much have they seen wrestling? They've seen it till they're sick of it. But the stories, if you tell a story and something is going to be proven at the end of the story, that's how you get people. How do you get people to watch? When you're watching a movie, if it doesn't have a good plot to it or leading you somewhere and you go, it's boring. This movie's boring me. And guess what you do? Click, go to another channel or just turn the TV off or turn whatever you're watching off. See, wrestling is an endeavor that's talked about by many, but understood by a few. Seriously. And you can watch, I've watched some great shows back in WWE, but still they had shows greater than the one I was watching. That's when the show flows and you got a lot of things on it. And when you're watching WWE, if that show goes by fast, you say, damn, that's how you know it's a good show. Because if you find yourself watching the clock and saying, God, when is this over? And I do that sometimes because I have to do it for one of my podcasts that on Sportskeeda. I have to watch the show, and I used to look at it, not now, but let's say a year and a half, 2 years ago, I was saying, God, when is this show over? It's so boring. And of course, some people got mad at me, and I said, the show sucked. The show sucked, and people got mad at me by saying, you don't know what's right. I said, yeah, well, I know if it's interesting or not. I may not know what you're trying to get out of it, but viewership, you didn't. Because if I'm not going to be interested in it, I don't think a regular wrestling fan would be interested in it either. But and what was the question the guy asked? How do you start?
Well, if you
the world champion?
Yeah, if you had to have like a new promotion and there was anyone available today that you could build that promotion around, who would you pick? Who do you think's got longevity and would draw eyeballs?
Well, I would build it around a babyface, and you could say. But Logan Paul would be one I really like.
Would you really? I didn't think you'd say that at all.
I love him because I think the guy, he can be a good guy or a heel, great as a heel, because he loves being a heel.
I think he is one. I mean, he's been sued quite a lot at the moment.
He don't give a shit if he gets sued or not. He'll end up getting money from them. Who's suing him?
Quite a few people.
Who?
Well, one that I'm very interested in is he's trying to sue an online exposer of scams, CoffeeZilla, who I watch a lot of his stuff. And essentially, CoffeeZilla has been revealing all these crypto, like these, not Bitcoin, but, these other crypto scam kind of things that he seems to specialize in. And Logan Paul has been a favorite target of his. And now Logan Paul is suing CoffeeZilla, and CoffeeZilla is going to have to go to court and defend himself, and etc. It's very interesting. So that's just one of the lawsuits.
And what a great story they have going. Because you're interested in it.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're interested in the outcome. That's what I say. You got to have a story, and you got to have some kind of a verdict at the end of the story to see if your watching was worthwhile. But anyway, you just can't take anybody, and it's not necessarily the champion. It's who you surround the champion with. So any of you want to be bookers out there, it's a group effort, believe me.
Mm-hmm. Next question. Jimmy says, hello, fellas. Hope you're doing well. Saw some comments on a recent video where people were saying that according to the internet, Dutch Mantell is worth $118 million. So why are you still living in an apartment in Kentucky then, if you've got $118 million?
That's what MJF said. Is that what he said?
Something like that.
Yeah, he said, I'm at Dutch Mantell living somewhere out in Kentucky. Actually, I found that, I kind of enjoyed that line. But
we did enjoy that. We did enjoy that. That was fun.
I don't know where that comes from. It's like anything else. That's misinformation and disinformation at the same time. So if I had really $118 million, I would own my own network, probably, if I wanted to, if I had that much money. But I'm doing a podcast for $35 a week.
Would you like to make $50 million, Dutch?
Yeah, start with 100.
Yeah.
Is that what you're going to say?
Yeah, I was. Yeah, start a wrestling promotion.
Yeah. Yeah, then you end up at 50 million. No, I am not worth $118 million. I'm really not. I wish I was.
Next question. Wayne says, I'm sure many of the wrestlers back in the days didn't have the best credit. Did that affect them obtaining car rentals? And also, he asked the second question I'll ask in a second.
No, it didn't affect them getting car rentals. They just had to have a valid credit card. They don't run a credit check when you rent a car. If you just got the credit card that goes through, that's all they're going to put on it anyway.
Well, what if they couldn't get a credit card then? How would you rent a car? Would you have to rely on someone else?
Well, somebody else would have to rent it. Yes. Because if you didn't have a card, or I guess you could put cash money down, but that's went by the wayside. Yeah, a lot of wrestlers didn't have the greatest credit because they moved around a lot, and a lot of them didn't make a lot of money, and there were some bills that went unpaid. But if you end up with something, say you buy a house, then you sell the house, those credit card people can put a lien on the house and they're going to get their money. I don't care how old the charge is. But if you got charges, I learned this, if you got charges and they keep bothering, call them up and say, listen, I want to do something with this. Say it's a $500 bill that you hadn't paid. You say, I tell you what, I can give you $100. And they say, okay, let me run this by. Then they'll call home office and they come back and say, well, we'll let you out of it for $250. He said, I got $100. Okay, let me run it by and call them. They said, we'll let you out for $200. But that's a win already. You got them down $300. And then you say, listen, can you hear at all? Are you hard of hearing? No. I said I got $100. That's it. Then they call up. And sometimes they'll come back. And if they come back then with 150, say, okay, I can do 150. And then they'll write it off. You can clear up bad credit like that if it's not too much. So, and if it's too much, you can file bankruptcy. But I don't know if that writes it off or not. I'd have to ask I'd have to lie to our podcast attorney, Adam Berbauer. I think I'm going to have to write him. So if you have a $10,000 debt and you write it off, and then 5 years goes by, what happens to that? They got to write it off at some point anyway as unrecoverable. I think it's either 3 to 5 years. But anyway, that's what I'm saying.
The follow-up to this was, did you ever work in Bakersfield? Where is Bakersfield?
I did in California. Yes, I did work there. And it was a little building too. It wasn't very big. It was like, I don't know, you may have got 1,500 people in it. Now that wasn't their big civic building, but it was some out of the way place. I don't even know why we even worked there.
Was this WCW? Was this somewhere?
I'm sure it was. Yeah, we worked Bakersfield, and I didn't even like the town. You know, I've always heard about Bakersfield, you know, all those old country songs and old Buck Owen singing about Bakersfield. But it's an old country California town from what I knew it to be. But wasn't impressed by old building, old dressing rooms. It's just an old building.
Next question. This is the one you're looking forward to. Mohammed sent in a video of Low Key apparently responding to something you said. I haven't seen the video, but you have. What did he say? What did he say? What's going on?
I said that he was hard to work with. And he took, umbrage? Is that it? Is that the word?
Yes,
umbrage. He took umbrage with that and says, well, no, because we just didn't understand him in TNA. And he goes through this, and let me say one thing right up front. I'm not disagreeing with Low Key's talent, because he is really one of the best talents I've ever seen, because he does go out of his way to make it look real, and he turns in great matches. The thing with Low Key that held him back was his inability to speak. He had an unusual voice too. But whoever had him, he just wouldn't change the way he did interviews. And he's not a very good off-the-cuff speaker too. And I think that hurt him more than anything. And he's talking about, we did a TV for TNA in Florida, and he said the Orlando fans were all Hispanics, I think. And he said he was over there like crazy. Well, Low Key, I need to tell you, we wasn't doing TV just for the local fans in Orlando. We were doing them for a nationwide distribution of the TNA show. So, and he said that Jeff didn't understand him and I didn't understand him. And I'm reading the comments in this, and he says, Low Key is the most self-centered person I've ever met. Then he says, yeah, thinks he's God's gift to wrestling. And all what it said in the comments about Low Key was a lot worse than what I said. Because Low Key, you would go in and you would give him what you wanted, and he'd say, man, and that's the start of it. I'm going to suggest something to him. If somebody gives him that, say, I got an idea. You see what I mean? Change the approach. Like, that don't really work for me. Because I don't remember Low Key turning in any big viewership numbers. I don't remember him turning in any big pay-per-view numbers. And because he wasn't the main event, so he couldn't have took credit for him anyway. And I'm not saying we couldn't have done more with him, but Low Key was, I think, his own worst enemy. I really do. And I like the guy. And if I'm not, and he's been a lot of places, name one place that Low Key has been the main event.
Unless it was an indie, I did none. I don't know. Well, MLW, which is glorified indie, I guess, but I think he was their champion for a short while, a few years ago.
He should be champion somewhere. He's very talented. But I'm saying, if you don't draw money someplace, what would make the next booker bring you in and put you on top and make you the champion if you didn't draw any money in that other company, even if they handle you totally different. Where's the confidence that you can draw some money and be a star? And this is one thing that I don't blame Low-Key for feeling, that he's the best there is in the business. I don't blame him for feeling that way, because if you don't feel that way, you need to go do something else. So I've seen matches.
Is that what he said? He said he was the best in the business.
No, I said if you need to feel like you're the best in the business, which is what I think he feels. I don't think he said it, but I think he feels that way, which is okay. Because if you don't feel that way, if you don't feel like you belong in the top echelon of a card with the other guys, then you should get out of the business and do something else. So, but he said one thing in there about Jeff Jarrett told him, he says, he was talking to Jeff, and he said something about Jeff making a point and says, we're going to do something or whatever, trust me. And he hit him in the chest with the finger. He said, from where I come from, that will get you killed. Wait a minute. It's a wrestling match we're talking about, not damn on the street violence. Why would that get you killed anyway? But I think he needed to go back and rethink his interview and be a little more agreeable to some things. And I think things might turn around for him.
He's 44 now. So do you think he's got one more run in him?
Well, LA Knight has one more run in him, but LA Knight, he can talk. And the people just respond to him. Now, if he walked out there and all of a sudden he could talk like LA Knight, yeah, he'd be over. Because I've seen a lot of guys that couldn't work a third of what Low-Key can work and as well, but they could talk. And all they wanted to hear him is talk. Handsome Jimmy Valiant couldn't work his way out of a paper bag, but the people loved him because why? Because he made them feel something here. And Mr. Low-Key, my advice to you is make people feel something and get something to where you could, I hope you don't act around the fans like you act around the dressing room, because you'd be the biggest heel in the world. But anyway, I don't blame him for feeling that way. And Low-Key, I'm glad you made your feelings known.
Curtis says, does Dutch Mantell have any memories of working alongside Bruno Sammartino? And does Dutch remember any backstage stories of Bruno Sammartino? And if any other wrestlers felt jealous of his long championship reign? So, did Bruno ever visit a territory that you were part of back in the 70s or 80s?
I think he came to Puerto Rico once, Bruno, but he just came down on vacation and thought he'd work a show, I guess. Of course, a lot of Puerto Ricans have spent time in New York, so they really knew who Bruno was. But he was in the other dressing room. He was across the whole baseball field for me. And that's when we used to come out of the different dressing rooms. Oh, imagine that, wrestlers in different dressing rooms. And still had matches and never talked a match over. You just go to the ring and you got what you got. But I never met him. And now let's go back to, some people feel bad because they worked under him, or they were jealous of him because of his long title reign. Bruno Sammartino didn't keep that long reign for nothing. He kept the long reign because of production. He put asses in seats. That was the days before pay-per-view. That was the days before TV contracts. He put asses in seats in Madison Square Garden, the Boston Gardens, Philadelphia Spectrum, Pittsburgh, whatever that, in the Baltimore arena downtown. He put asses in those seats, and they were basically running then just off ticket sales. I don't even think they had gotten into, back in those days, they hadn't even gotten into the merchandise sales that much. I mean, they had it, but it was a long time coming before all of a sudden said, hey, we need to brand this stuff and put it out there so the people can buy it. Then they showed how much it could bring in. Oh yeah, we're all on the gimmick bandwagon now. But he put asses in seats, and no, he didn't work every day. He didn't work probably Harrison, Pennsylvania, or I think that's where they did TV. But he didn't work those smaller shows. He worked the big ones.
Well, in his first reign, I think he did. On his second reign, it was more of a part-time affair. So he sort of negotiated a part-time affair to sort of keep his body...
I don't blame him.
Surviving, I guess, those extra years.
And how did he do that? You know how he did it? How the promoter did it? Kept running new villains in. About every 8 months, 9 months, he'd run a big killer heel in. I'm going toward, and that was their MO. They would keep running those big, massive, fear-driven, badass heels by Bruno, and then the big heel would beat all the other baby faces, and the people were thinking, "Oh, wait a minute, wait till he runs into Bruno." And that's going to change. And then the first time he run into Bruno, if he beat Bruno, then you just got to go about 6 weeks down the line and Bruno was going to get his title back. That's the only way he could have had it for 8 years is because the promoter wanted him to have it, because the promoter was making money with Bruno Sammartino. And no, I don't think the other guys, they may have privately said, "I'd like to be in the spot Bruno is," because that was jealousy. I don't blame him. I'd want to be in the same spot too. But that wasn't going to change. And that was old school anyway. And they had their territory. It was the same guys that worked the same territories for years and years and years and years. It didn't change around like it does today, or maybe even 10 years ago.
Yeah, I don't remember people being on the undercard of... Not that I was there, obviously, but Hulk Hogan, in the 80s when, he was packing out every single arena. I mean, I'm sure there was a couple of people on top who were openly jealous and wanted to be where he was, but for everybody else who was working on the undercard and getting those great payoffs, I'm sure they wanted him to be champion forever. I'm sure,
Yep.
What was that? Thank you for the house. Where
Yes,
that all
that's
said,
it.
yeah.
Thank you for the house. Because when it sold out, say you may make $500 there as a regular payoff, but you may make $1,000. And what did you have to do with it? Zero. You were depending on what they do and how you got paid. That's why it come up as thank you for the house. Now that's when they paid third. Then it got to where the promoters, and this is how promoters got to be distrusted, because they wouldn't turn in the gate, the correct gate for it. So if somebody asked them, they said, no, instead of $100,000 gate, it was a $70,000 gate. So, and that cuts your, that cuts your payoff down. Plus the number of guys on the card, they were all paid out of the same pile. So sometimes the fourth match, fifth match make the same thing as the first match. But your main event got most of the money because they were responsible for it.
Yeah, I believe when Bruno was champion and WWF at the time was the main eventers got paid great. The undercard didn't get paid very well. So I think...
Well, for the time, let's take 30 years ago. $500 for a shot at, say, Houston. They didn't get paid like the main event got paid. But still $500. And they was going to do the same work whether they got $100 payoff. It's the same thing. Cost them the same amount to go to the town, same amount to stay over, but they had $500 to play with and pay with it instead of $100.
Final question. Dave from Somerset says, hi, Dutch and James. A question for Dutch. On daily basis, do wrestlers call each other by their real names backstage, or do they use their characters' names? Thank you.
No, they always use the character's name. In WWE, you were literally, there's that word again, literally forbidden to use their real name.
Were they really?
See, I wasn't Dutch. I was Zeb. And everybody best called me Zeb around Vince.
Well, I mean, you still call Jack Swagger Jack. You don't call him Jake. You call him Jack. But he calls you Dutch.
And I don't know. But see, everybody knew I was Dutch, but I think the reason Vince didn't allow that because guys could be doing interviews and use the Dutch term. Nobody knew me as Dutch, basically, except for people that would be down south. But the whole country knew me as Zeb. That's what Vince called me and wanted everybody else to call me Zeb too, which is not a bad rule. You just got to remember to use it.
Well, I've always called you Dutch.
Have you?
Because I've never called you Zeb. No, I've always called you Dutch. You've never told me. You've never told me off for.
No, but that's what I'd rather go by, Dutch. I don't go by Zeb. I answer to Zeb, but how many years did I answer to Dutch, and how many years did I answer to Zeb? See, there's like 30 years I answered to Dutch, and only about 4 I answered to Zeb. 5 maybe.
Was there anybody backstage who insisted on being called their real name? No.
It's not a big deal. What was the question again? Did I refer to anybody? Yeah, if you want to be a smart ass, you could say, well, Meltros, or some weird name. And somebody say, what? Oh, yeah, that's his real name, Meltros, or whatever. But unless he just had a really weird name, nobody ever did that.
Do you get fans occasionally? Because I think we get that through emails occasionally or whatever, who want to appear to be smart and then they'll use a wrestler's real name. And it's like, just call them by their work name. That's how everyone else calls them.
I do have a guy, he'll call me, well, Wayne. Because I'm, if you want to find out a wrestler's name, just keep looking. You can find it. It's not that hard. He always calls me Wayne, and there was somebody else used to call me Wayne all the time in the dressing room. I can't remember who it was, but they'd make a big deal out of it. Well, that's Wayne. And I say, I refuse to answer under that name in case of me and self-incriminate me or something. So who wrote that? Said, who sent that in?
That was Dave, if that is his real name.
Yeah, Dave. If that is your real name, Dave, I think you need to change that to like Matilda. That'd be a good name. Throw them off.
It would be. Matilda from Somerset, thank you very much for writing in that question. And that was the last question of Ask Dutch Anything, episode 53. We will catch you again, Ask Dutch Anything, this Friday. And once again, the email is questionsfordutch@gmail.com if you want your question submitted for consideration for next week's episode or episodes in the future. But until Friday, Dutch, we the people.
We the people. And if anybody wants to write me, Dirty Dutch Mantell with 2 L's at gmail.com. And my website is up and running, dirtydutchmantell.com. Got a lot of good stories over there if you want to go and visit. And I'm going to add some more stuff. So how long have I been saying that? 2 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I get lost in time sometimes. But anyway, glad you all tuned in and hope you have a better day just because of us. See you later.
Yeah. Email dirtydutchmantell with 2 L's at gmail.com and have your credit card ready.